Hello, and welcome back to Robot Republic. I am Josh, and joining me today we have some very special guests because I am joined by Martyn and Fay from Imaginary Friends Games, who have created a gorgeous and wholesome little click and point adventure called Shindig. Hello, Martyn and Fay.
Hi.
Hello, Josh.
Hello there. And by the way, should any random squeaks be happening in the background, it's because Astrid, our cat, has just joined us as well. So, hi, Astrid, too. Come on. Yes, she is. Go on, see if we can make it work without, oh, she had to be picked up. This is Astrid. My beautiful girl. Beautiful girl. Absolutely. Bye. But she's a little camera shy, as you can see. Getting her to actually pose for her shots in the game was not easy, but she is indeed our girl. We have two cats, Astrid and Cosmos. Cosmos is also in the game, but not in photorealistic form.
Yeah. He's not AAA graphics.
They are for reals our cats, and that is very much what they're like in real life. So. Okay, so we've sort of first off had to figure out what our first game would be. That's the kind of starting point from this, I think. And obviously we've got like a billion ideas of what kind of games we wanted to make, but I love point and click games. You like point and click games very much, but they're not, you're more the kind of arcade action guy.
But I really like trying to do something a bit different with genres, particularly ones that are like a little bit sort of less en vogue than they have been in the past. So, you know, you can get me interested with something like that, and none I was.
So we sort of figured out that for our first, for our debut game, we wanted to make a point and click for sure. And basically, in terms of the inspirations for that, we already had a lot of the characters already, because we kind of joke that our love language is like anthropomorphizing things and just creating characters to make each other laugh and stuff like that. Like I can't walk past a dog on the street without voicing it and being like, oh, hello, how are you doing today? That kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, so as you've already said, or we've already said, Astrid and Cosmos, the cats, are our cats and they're in the game. But a lot of the other characters are have a sort of Christopher Robin vibe going on, whereby like they are cuddly toys that we've got and we've had for years.
Yeah, because we've been together for like forever, like 20 something years. And so, you know, like went through college and university and that kind of stuff and bought each other presents of teddy bears and stuff like that. So from a character side, we kind of were like, right, we're going to make a point and click because we love that stuff.
Yeah.
We've got these great characters to start with, or at least we think they're funny as heck, you know. And how are we going to sort of, you know, a video game needs visuals on screen. So we need to have something for people to look at. And we were inspired by just so many different things because we kind of,
we love a lot of kids media and like not ironically or anything, we just love it.
Yeah.
And part of what we wanted to achieve with Shindig was making a game that gave you that feeling of like, I love how Sesame Street says like, come and play wherever in, you know, like when kids watch like TV or play a game as well, I suppose, it's like you're transported there.
Yeah.
So there's kind of an interactivity to kids media
that
that like grown-up stuff doesn't have. You're not transported to a place so much, right?
No, exactly.
And so we wanted to kind of capture all of those things, but like something that could be for adults as well.
Yeah.
And I'm always a bit reticent to say it's for adults because that kind of often conjures up ideas that it's going to turn into a horror game. Or
it's like, suddenly going to have loads of swearing in it and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know.
But for us, like the inspirations off the top of my head, obviously kind of classic point and clicks come into there because we do love those. But also things like CBeebies shows like Hey Dougie and Sarah and Duck, but like your Saturday morning TV shows like DuckTales and Gravity Falls and stuff like that. And on top of that, there's like, I mean, like we're massive Muppets fans and Disney fans and stuff like that. So anything by Jim Henson Company, you know, like.
And I think like the influences of the game, when we're being specific, it's often kids media stuff. Yeah. Whereas the video game influences are a bit more abstract. Yeah. Like the game came from a conversation about sense of place in games. We were talking about how like some games, I don't know, like Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, right? You can just turn that on and just go hang out on Windfall Island, and it's a good chill time.
Yeah,
So
you don't really even
yeah.
need to go and do the adventure. And I have like a catalog of games that have that purpose of just, I don't necessarily play through them.
Yeah.
But you just turn them on and hang out somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the Yakuza games, and it's quite different to Shindig.
Feeling spicy.
But like, yeah, those are games where you can just hang out in a place. And we were walking in the woods because for the last 10 years, we lived in Germany working for Nintendo.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll come on to this later.
And just down the road from where we lived, there was a big woods, and we would often kind of walk through there to sort of, you know, clear our heads and calm down, chill out.
Be in nature.
And part of the inspiration for Shindig was trying to make a game that gave you that kind of thing, that kind of feeling. So it's like a safe place to go to. And I mean, also, we were then about to go home. So Shindig also has this feeling of coming home somewhere or finding a new home.
Exactly. And we sort of we're walking through the woods and kind of went like, what kind of games are we going to make? Because we knew at that point, after these long careers in the games industry, that we wanted to make games together. Yeah. But you know, you have to kind of find a starting point for that sort of thing. And we were trying to figure out like what should like the kind of main message of our first like big splash, hopefully big splash, be, you know, what kind of values should that espouse and what kind of feel should it give? And we kind of came across the idea of like, what about a game where you just throw a party? It's not like a lofty goal of like you're saving the world or, you know, the universe is hanging in the balance or something. What about something that's just low-key hero stuff, like, and you can just throw a nice party for some cool animals and laugh at some jokes and hopefully, you know, bop along to some catchy tunes.
Initial title, Baxter's Party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, from my perspective, it was just straight off the bat, it's just accessible. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Whether you're the sort of person who is like, you know, a diehard Call of Duty fan, a diehard FIFA fan, or someone who loves spending hours on a massive sandbox open world RPG, it's just the sort of game where actually it's just accessible to everyone. Because regardless, when I was playing it through, I was kind of talking to my partner about it, and it was a case of like, well, everyone at some point in their life will, in some way, shape, or form, be involved in the throwing of a party for someone.
Right, exactly.
In some way, shape, or form, you know, even if it's just like, you know, we're just going to go out for a meal, or you've been an attendee, so it's something that everyone can get on board with, and it is a really lovely concept as well. And I like the premise for the throwing of the party as everyone on the island's feeling a bit fed up.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, just for the viewers at home. So the kind of spurious premise of this little point and click style adventure is you've been basically like hired to come and help throw a party. And the main kind of concept of the game, your objectives are basically that you're gonna go to this island of animal friends and like get the stuff that you need for a party. So you got to get some music, you got to get some cake, you got to get some cool drinks, and you know, some nice decorations as well to sort of set it all off.
And you know, it's part of like what we wanted to do as well was you don't save the world in Shindig. You just kind of make everybody's day a bit better. And these characters aren't they're not in danger.
No.
Like they all have these small but achievable things. Like you don't fix them.
Yeah.
It's not like saving the galaxy via emotional intelligence.
Like in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Or, you know, making really bad decisions and not.
That's possible too. But like the idea was that you could like just have a game where you know, you can just forget about your troubles for a few hours and you're not worried about like a tonal bait and switch, like, oh god, is this where a character gets their head bitten off, like I've fallen in love with this teddy bear now or whatever. Like we just sort of wanted to make something that was just kind of nice. And for us, like, you know, there are lots of different types of heroes in the world. And like you said, like everybody's helped throw a party for someone at some point. Mums and dads are low-key heroes throwing parties for their kids. When you help out with your mate who's passed their driving test or whatever, it's a nice thing to do, and that's kind of transferable to the real world, you know.
Yeah.
I think that really comes across. Like, you know, I spent quite a while playing it through, if I'm honest. I
Good.
did complete it. I may have
Excellent.
binged my way through the whole game in about 2 or 3
Awesome.
days. Was kind of like,
Oh,
no, I'm not
nice.
gonna binge it in one day. I'm gonna make this last because it's so nice.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I just the whole premise of the game and the characterization and stuff. It means even more. You know, it's just kind of like it means a bit more now that you've kind of explained that all the characters are kind of, you know, plushies that you guys have given to each other over the course of your relationship as well. It just adds a level of just complete adorableness to this game.
So nice.
Some of the characters were created specifically for
Some
Shindig,
were, yeah,
and some
yeah.
of them are just kind of extrapolated from jokes. Like
Yeah.
the two pigs that run the car lot are we used to listen to the like American radio stations, and they would always have these like car showroom adverts, and that's
awkward car showroom
right, that's how
adverts
Big
of, like,
Bonus and Alexa
hey,
came
big
about.
brother, let's tell them about the cars.
I
It's
was going to come on to
adorable.
that. I
Yeah,
was actually
yeah.
going to come on to the writing as well, because there are some really quite fantastic jokes in there.
Excellent.
I
Thank you very
mean,
much.
there were moments where I actually was like laugh out loud, and it was, to be fair, majority of the time was the two pigs, and
they are special.
is it Stevie the turtle?
Steve the
Steve,
turtle.
yeah.
Everyone loves Steve.
I love Steve was brilliant. That quest
Thank
line.
you.
Spoiler warning for those people who have yet to play it. But Steve basically wants you to be his bestie.
Yeah, he does.
And he's got this amazing. He's got a hat collection which I'm incredibly jealous of. I'm not gonna lie. I did sit there
Right.
looking at it, going, "Oh my god, I need this hat collection."
I would
in my
wear
life.
this.
I was like, "Oh my god, I would wear all of those hats."
Nice.
But there were just like moments with Steve as well, where you first meet him and you're having that conversation in front of a lighthouse, and it's all very, you know, then you can be my bestie if you can do this for me. And I was just like, oh, this is just so funny and cute, and it's just really heartwarming, to be fair. And I think,
Thank you.
you know, we don't really tend to want to dwell on the last 2 years because it has just been awful for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think this is the sort of game that actually it just makes you feel good. And like you guys say, it celebrates the kind of everyday heroes of just going out and, you know, having a chit chat with your neighbor, or just, you know, kind of low key heroes like you were saying. And the game just kind of has this beautiful message about, actually, from when I was playing it through, I was just like, actually, if we all just kind of, you know, were a little bit nicer to each other some of the time, it would just take the kind of stress out of life.
Just a little bit of
just
compassion
Yeah.
can go a long way. You know,
That's why we wanted to have those bits where the game does sort of address some more serious stuff, because it's overall very positive, but you know, the characters have we wanted the game to have like an amount of emotional realness to it, right?
Yeah.
Like to go back to Sesame Street, there's the famous Big Bird finds out
about death, and let's not talk about this too much because I will get emotional. It's the aim
wears
of
its
it
heart on its sleeve.
Yeah, it's heartfelt. It really is.
Yeah, because, you know, there may be other point and click adventures which have character creators. I don't know many.
I don't think there's any out yet, but I don't have like super encyclopedic knowledge.
Because most of these games are kind of like JRPGs, right? Where it's not your character, it's a character that is made for you, and you see their journey. But we wanted, because of getting that feeling of like coming home and being able to hang out in a place, that it could be you, or at least how you choose to represent yourself.
Exactly. But yeah, I think welcoming is really what we were going for, and you know, it's really lovely to hear that you enjoyed it and you found it wholesome and that you were laughing along, because that's really what we tried to do. You know?
I mean, it really is, you know, and we'll come on to like some of the more kind of like technical aspects in a minute and stuff, but just the entire environment and the art style and stylization and stuff as well is just, it lends itself so beautifully, because there's no dark foreboding colors. You've just got this lovely little island community. When I was playing it through, it sounds really weird, but I was literally like, I imagine this is what like Guernsey was like a while back, with slightly more interesting sort of, you know, people that lived on the island. This kind of like very small, very close-knit island community. I was like, I imagine this is what Guernsey is like.
I can see that.
Guernsey,
just this very small, tight-knit little island community where everyone just knows each other, and you walk down the street and you're like, all right, mate, and they're like, yeah, how's it going? That kind of thing. I was just... The other thing that I wanted to talk about as well is that kind of so much work has gone into this game by the pair of you. You know, kind of. I mean, I was literally going through the game and I was like, okay, cool. Because before this, I made a list. I was like, right. So obviously, you guys have done all of the artwork, you've done all of the animation, you've done the story, you've done the music and the soundtrack, and then you went and did all of the voice acting for all of the characters as well. And at that point, I was like, wow. And I'm not gonna lie, that's where some of the laughs came from, because the voice acting did
Great.
create these and like it's like you say, they're almost kind of like, you know, Muppets and Sesame Street level
Yes.
sort of
Oh.
characterizations going on with it. These kind of like, you know, I mean, with the two pigs, I genuinely sat there at one point going, this could literally be in an episode of Peppa Pig, which to those people in America might not know what Peppa Pig is. It's a very, very funny children's cartoon about a pig
Yeah.
called Peppa and the general shenanigans that she gets up to.
We've had people mention Peppa Pig a couple of times, actually.
And it's funny, actually, one of the inspirations for Shindig was the Big Nights, which is made by the same company who made Peppa Pig, but has like Brian Blessed doing the voice of this like big hefty knight who's not
big
the cleverest
recommendation.
guy.
The Big Nights.
Recommendation.
Yeah.
Big Nights, so funny.
Brilliant.
So good.
Definitely gonna look that up. But yeah, I mean, what came across for me as well is when I was playing this was proper labor of love sort of thing. So much care and detail was put into just everything, you know. And like I say, there are some slightly more, I don't want to say grown up, but some slightly more serious kind of storylines in it and stuff. I liked the storyline with the octopus male person octopus, or the male person, the octomale post.
Octo Postmaster.
Octo Postmaster.
Octo Postmaster. Love that as well. I love that.
But Postmaster is like one of those military ranks which doesn't change gender, if you get what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're a postmaster whether you're male or female.
Yeah. Quinn is technically a lady. Who knew? Thank you. Yeah, Quinn. We really liked putting Quinn in. Actually.
I liked
one of the characters who's created.
Kind of. I'm really good at my job and I enjoy my job, but because I can't get and do my job at the other end of the island, I'm getting a little bit like I need something to do. And I thought that was because we all go through it in our kind of day-to-day lives and stuff. We all kind of hit that point with our jobs where we're a bit like, oh, this again sort of thing. And it was really nice to actually have that kind of done in a really sensitive manner actually as well. That was also a little bit, it was a bit quirky and a bit funny, but it was also really, really sensitive. And there are some other really great, I'm not going to spoil it for people because you need to go and play this game, peeps. But there are some other really, really beautiful, sensitive storylines in there that are a little bit more serious. And I found when I was playing it through that it was done in a really kind of sensitive manner. And having kind of like some of the kind of serious things that came up in there, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is ringing bells for me as a person, as a player. And I was like, actually, the way it's been dealt with and the way that you guys kind of weaved that narrative into the overall gameplay really kind of just dealt with these kind of more serious matters in a really level, calm way that didn't make this big kind of show and dance. Because some games do make a big song and dance with these kind of more serious matters. Actually, it was really nice to play a game where it just was a thing. And then you did something to help, and it kind of reduced the severity of the thing instead of making a big whole song and dance about it, which was really nice. And I think that lends itself to kind of, when I was playing it through, what I found with the game is just this level of heartfelt sensitivity in it, really.
Thank you. For us, it was, you know, the stuff that we're talking about, the sort of more serious stuff, for folks who haven't played it yet. It's in Hangouts and things like that. So there are,
when you get to know the characters and they're your friend now, so they sort of open up to you a bit more.
Yeah, exactly, as happens in real life. And for us, we really wanted, you know, we could have just made the whole game and not had that kind of stuff in it. But for us, I think that kind of the characters, the people and the places are the heart of Shindig. And to be able to put in these little, like we say, more serious, deeper emotional topics was just so important to us, because it could be sickly sweet without it, you know. And it's nice to make a cheerful game, but I think that humanity works best when there's just that little tinge of not sadness, but just everything isn't perfect, you know. And to be able to broach those kind of more difficult topics, and you know, this is a game that it's not just for adults, it's not just for kids, to be able to broach those subjects with whomever is playing in a way that's not judgmental, that just says it's okay not to be okay, and to talk about these kind of things with people and to have doubts and question XYZ. Like it was really important for us to be able to broach that with the player, because you've got to give your player the credit that, sure, they might have played your game because it's a cozy game or it's bright or colorful or whatever, but they can handle just that little bit of deeper characterization that really connects with people on lots of different levels, or at least that's what people have said to us. You know, the hangout with Phineas or with Baxter or with Agatha really have connected with people on a much more sort of deep and personal level. And I think that it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly gratifying.
Because it's not easy to write that kind of thing, you know.
No,
it's
definitely.
It's not easy to test as well.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
There are some of those hangouts though that, like, I did a lot of the voices in the game, and recording the voices was quite emotionally tiring, basically.
Yeah,
but to actually play them back, like, there are some that I still get like a little bit goosebumpsy, though we wrote them and made them, because it's still like I'm far enough removed from those characters that you see that story as a separate thing, you know.
Yeah, because about the voices, as we were saying, the characters often came from characters that we've had for years and years, and in real life, as it were, we often talk to each other in those voices, like, you know,
just to make each other laugh. Really.
Baxter and Hob and Dr. Hund and stuff are always talking in our house.
Yeah.
And
usually if I drop something, I'm like,
and I do the voices too.
Yeah.
But, you know, through that process of making the game, and Faye has more voice acting experience.
I did a little bit before Shindig.
And you're just much more reliable when it comes to that kind of thing. I can't nail it right every single time.
You get it right. It's just that you get a little stressed, maybe.
You sing a lot better than me as well, so I didn't want to be any of the characters that sang. So yeah, it ended up being Faye doing the lion's share of the voice acting.
Yeah. In our wardrobe. With like a blanket stapled to the walls so that it would dampen the sound.
Was it a low budget home-built studio?
Oh yeah. Everything that was all made.
And every sound effect in the game, when I said earlier that they're locally sourced, like they are, the bird song you hear, that's from our back garden.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
The waves are from the beach nearby to where we live.
Yeah.
Most of like the mouse clicking sounds and stuff like that are old consoles or cameras or something.
Yeah, we've got a little loft room with just like tons of old consoles, because we're, you know, massive nerds, geeks, whatever you want to call it. We really love games and always have. And so we've like collected all of this cool old tech. And so I wandered around with my like little handheld recorder, which is what we're using right now. Just like knocking on things and pressing the buttons on old consoles. And
when you go into any of the buildings on the town square, that's in my parents' house, isn't it? Yeah, it's like a wardrobe at my parents' house.
That's brilliant. I mean, that was going to be the next thing I was going to come on to, because obviously the game itself, the art style and the characters and the narrative and stuff is all beautiful and stuff, but constantly underneath that you have probably some of the most well-crafted and ambient soundtrack that just matches what's going on in the game perfectly. And it's just,
thank you very much,
constantly,
it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, it must have taken absolutely bloody ages. But it just every piece of music in that game you guys wrote and created yourselves.
Yes.
And it just kind of, how did you, because obviously like you've got like different bits, and like the one that sticks out to me is the one where you're wandering up the hill to the observatory to see Cosmos.
Yeah.
And then you go into Cosmos the cat's observatory, and the music is the same but slightly different and a little bit more electronic-y.
Absolutely, it goes all Gary Newman.
It does. I was literally thinking it in my notes. I've got written, it sounds like early Depeche Mode straight Gary Newman.
Oh, thanks.
And I was just like, how long did that take? Honestly, like.
Well, all of the songs. So
yeah,
with the exception of one track, they were all written by Faye.
They were,
and they were originally written on ukulele and voice.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Right. So chords on the ukulele usually, and you would sing the melody.
Yeah.
And then that was transferred into like MIDI notes and instruments. Um,
and then fleshed out with amazing free VST instruments that are available on the internet.
Brilliant.
Yeah, how I don't know is the answer. Basically, a couple of years ago, I started teaching myself ukulele because I always wanted to be able to write songs,
Yeah.
and kind of didn't really have any musical ability. Never really like learned that kind of stuff. So
you always had ability. You didn't have any musical education.
Thank you. This is what
I'm not
going to
stand back and let you say that kind of thing.
But I could always sing, basically. But to be able to compose things, you really need to be able to do something with an instrument.
Yeah.
For me, to do it the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So I started with ukulele, and like you said, it's all those songs were chords that I put together on uke. And then that gets painstakingly transcribed into a MIDI track in Reaper, and then instruments put to that, and then counter melodies and things like that put on top of it, and bass lines and stuff, just because like you can't really have all that stuff in your head planned out. A lot of it kind of comes as you go, oh, that would sound good with this over it, kind of thing. So yeah, and we'd done some musical bits and bobs before, but never really gotten a handle on it, you know. And I think Shindig was a big learning experience in lots of ways, the music being one of them.
Well, I think Shindig, almost the sort of the origin of Shindig is in you starting to do music stuff, right? Because
my Imperfection project.
Yeah. So Faye has a YouTube channel where she does like ukulele covers and songs.
Yeah.
And
fabulous.
A few Christmases ago, you decided you did a Christmas song advent calendar. So every day you posted you singing and playing a Christmas song,
which was madness now thinking about it, because of, you know, anyone who's ever made a video and put anything up on YouTube, you know how much work that is. Oh my gosh. Right. And I got a cold about a week in, so I sound like a foghorn. It's terrible.
But the idea was to just sort of like, okay, I need to break the seal on doing this. Start putting stuff out there and not be obsessed with it being perfect, just it being out there.
Yeah.
And like that's the small domino that starts to the big domino of Shindig, I think.
Effect. Because the thing is, like, as I think a lot of people can probably identify with, perfectionism can really hold you back, basically. And
absolutely.
I'm somebody who's, you know, it sounds good in job interviews, but it's actually bloody awful being a perfectionist, because it really it sort of stops you from putting things out into the world, and it stops you from truly enjoying the process of creating things as well. And, you know, perfection doesn't really exist. Like, even if you make something that's perfect now, time and tide will move on, opinions will change, and next week it'll be crap, you know. So you can't listen to that part of yourself that says, I can't put this something out
just wait a bit until I'm a bit better at X, Y, or Z.
If I just fiddle with this forever, and then you never make anything.
No, basically. And you just go through that complete repetitive cycle of listening to it back and going, oh, that needs to be tweaked, and oh, that needs to be tweaked. Oh, I need to do, maybe I should do this a bit differently. Or, oh, maybe if I just add an extra note, or maybe if I do a key change here, and then you just sit there and go, well, this isn't what I started with, and I've still not done it.
And you can just faff with things forever. And that's kind of a self-defensive measure as well, because putting art out into the world is really hard. Putting something out there for people to see and judge, especially if you have perfectionist tendencies, it's like, you don't have control over it now. You know, people will see whatever they see in it, and they might say it's rubbish, and that's just something you have to deal with. But if you faff with something forever, and it never goes out there, then it never gets judged.
You know, we've both been in games for years, but like, particularly working for Nintendo, I've done a lot of stuff which is behind the scenes, and you know, I can't speak about. And NDAs. And it's a big step, but also something that, like, I certainly desperately wanted to do. I think we both did, to just make something for ourselves that was us. Not someone else's art, not something made to order.
Something
and
that's
not
really
a little bit of us.
Because the thing is, like, I think making a point and click has its sort of its pros and cons in a lot of ways. In that, I think for point and clicks, a lot of people really like certain point and click games and want more of that good stuff, basically. So for us, it was quite a risky prospect to make something that isn't sort of trying to hark back to that kind of nostalgia.
Yeah, it's not like brain teasers. It's not.
Yeah, we're not going for like really hard puzzles and
abstract logic.
Yeah, and we're not trying to sort of recreate your Monkey Islands and stuff, though we do love those, and it does inform the design of Shindig. It's still important, I think, to try and make something original and just bring something a little bit new to the landscape.
But that's the beauty of indie as well, right? Like, you know, when you work for a AAA company, you're trying to make something that will appeal to as many people as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Whereas with indie, you are trying to make something that feels personal.
Yeah. We tried anyway.
Yeah. And it absolutely comes across. I mean, that was going to bring me on to my next point, really, because obviously we haven't talked about the gameplay much itself, but the gameplay is, I mean, you know, it's so reminiscent of those kind of 90s point and click adventures that were, for me, were some of the first games I properly played.
Right.
On my Windows 95 computer that looked like a proper big beastly machine that took up the entire unit in the dining room. You know, kind of, but when I was playing this through, it was the old school point and click adventures, but it was very, I'm trying to think of the word, very fresh, very clean, and very smooth. Because obviously there was kind of like, you know, I remember kind of, I did a couple of years back replay one of the old Monkey Islands games, and I was like, oh, it's a bit janky, isn't it? But this wasn't. This was just so smooth. So obviously you guys would have obviously done, you know, quite a lot of kind of bug testing and whatnot whilst you were developing this. But obviously, how important was it for you guys kind of in the development of Shindig that actually this game it runs really, really smoothly, and you've got all these kind of smooth transitions between kind of like what the users are inputting and then the next thing that comes on and stuff, because it is the transitions and stuff, like in the conversations and in the point and click stuff when you're kind of moving stuff around, making the lemonade, for example, it just moves so seamlessly. Was that kind of something that you were really trying to kind of focus on during development, or is that just something that naturally occurred and you just sat there and went, oh wow, that's bloody good, isn't it?
There's sort of two sides to this, because so I'll just sort of give a little background here before I go on to my point. So we have loads of skills in writing and design and QA and that kind of thing, but we didn't have any skills in the art, the animation, the actual implementation, programming in Unity. And one of the reasons we decided to make a point and click was so that we could make use of like frameworks that are available, basically, because you don't want to make your own engine. That's burnout territory, basically. But to get the skills that we needed to, you know, put pictures on screen, make it sound great and make it all work, we utilized Unity and something within that called Adventure Creator, which is like a paid product that's basically like a kind of a point and click maker, basically. It doesn't do everything you see in Shindig. Some of that was bespoke, as it were.
I think like the closer you want your game to be to a recreation of something like Monkey Island, the easier it is. So we just struggle a little bit with some of those things.
But a lot of the sort of the, like you say, the transitions and that movement in and out and that kind of slick kind of reframing of shots and the direction of things, that's all a lot of work on top of what Adventure Creator allows you to do. So
but that scaffolding was very important.
The system where you can, you know, put characters in and you can have action lists to create puzzles and things like that sort of help you to construct the game as a whole. Adventure Creator really helps with that. It sort of does a lot of it for you, but a lot of the sort of slick stuff or cool transitions and stuff, like that was just,
it's all you. It's all us.
It's hours of work is what it is.
Also, like one of the big inspirations for the game in terms of other games was Night in the Woods. And like,
what a game.
We talked a lot about how Night in the Woods is sort of a platform game.
You do mooch around and jump on things.
But it's not, that's just a delivery system for the dialogue and for the sense of place and all that stuff. And we kind of wanted Shindig to be to have that same kind of relationship with being a point and click.
Yeah.
Which is why we didn't want it to be super difficult.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to have any of those really like the more hardcore point and click mechanics, like combining things.
Yeah.
Just like,
because it's not as accessible, really.
Yeah.
Like for our audience, we don't want our audience to just be people who have enjoyed those point and clicks and who have those kind of tropes and memes of point and clicks in mind. Like we've had people who like played the game with their kids, for example, and wrote about it in reviews, which is really cool because we wanted it to have more of a sort of universal appeal. And as soon as you go, I'm going to have the hardest puzzles possible, that actually excludes a huge amount of your audience. It can, and there are games where I have felt excluded from them. I have an invisible disability of my own. And so for things like boss battles and stuff that's like really twitchy in action games, like I physically cannot do them sometimes. And it can be so upsetting, you know? So we just wanted to avoid that being even a possibility. Like we didn't want the puzzles of Shindig to be like so simple they're insulting.
Yeah.
But we did want them to be the kind of thing where you didn't have to sort of pixel hunt and kind of go, oh, I need to take notes and things like that.
But the gameplay of Shindig isn't really the puzzles, it's the characters, it's the dialogue, it's that stuff.
Exactly. It's an ambience. It's a bundle of jokes and hope, basically, in like point and click clothes, basically.
I mean, if that's not an amazing advert for a game, I don't know what is. It's a bundle of hope. I'd agree with that, to be fair. I mean, what I found when I was playing it through, like, was the actual explorative aspects and just spending time just kind of wandering around the island. Sounds really weird, but I genuinely just spent about a solid hour just wandering around the island, just like, God, this place is just so completely calm and tranquil. And there's like loads of random cool little things that you can interact with. I mean, there was a bench that I sat on. There was outside the observatory. I sat on the log, and a cute little bird came down and started talking to me, and then flew away again. I was just like, oh, this is just adorable. I found that little like miniature Acropolis area as well.
Right, yeah.
On the way, where you can kind of like click on the two different statues and stuff as well. And it was just like, it rewards the player for actually taking the time to just explore the world.
Yeah. There's a lot you can do to make a game feel like a place, I think, which seems like super basic, but it's really effective. Like just having there be a place in between the town square and the observatory, then you feel like I walked there and then I walked there.
Yeah.
And it makes
feels like a journey.
Yeah, it makes the whole place feel like a more rounded environment, even though it's just screens. You know, it's quite easy to make a huge 3D environment feel huge and detailed.
Absolutely.
But 2D screens, it can be a bit more difficult.
I think we put a lot of work into the sense of place, though, because for us, a big part of the game, like we said, was being welcoming and accessible. But the thing that we really were working hard with Shindig for was to get a certain emotional landscape, basically, from the design kind of decisions that we put in. And that means having this, you know, picture book aesthetic that kind of, it's bright and it's friendly and it's warm and it appeals to all different kinds of people. But then the things that you put into that world and the kind of music that's, you know, languid and gentle and, you know, maybe a bit bleepy and boppy in places, to just sort of make it feel like a nice place to hang out, and putting in those little interactions and those places where you can just take a load off, just take a moment, just sit, maybe something nice will happen. Like, it encourages players to step into that emotional space and to just slow down a bit, because you're always hurrying these days. You know.
And we thought about like, oh, should we put a Steam achievement in for like sitting on every bench? And then we sort of thought, well, no, it kind of defies the point, right? Because then people will just go and sit down and stand up and sit down and stand up until they get the achievement.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, the point of them is to just hang back for a bit, enjoy the music, see if anything happens.
Maybe something will happen. Who knows?
All I'm going to say with regard to that comment is maybe you should spend some time in front of the waterfall.
Just saying.
Just saying. I've seen what's there now, and I was like, oh my God. Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, so anyone who has played Shindig and hasn't spent a while just kind of chilling with the music in front of the waterfall area, go do it.
Nice.
Go do it.
Awesome.
You will not
Pro
be
tip.
disappointed.
But I think that with the game, you know, we could have made it a much longer prospect. We could have made it a lot more sort of in depth. We had like all these ideas of like, oh, maybe like in Final Fantasy where you dress Cloud up and there's different versions of the pants you can get and stuff. Maybe we should have different versions of the party, you know, maybe we should have like, you could get a bouncy castle as well or something. But then we didn't want people to be like, oh, I got like an all right party.
The idea of the game ending with Baxter being like, well, it was okay, I suppose.
I guess it was all right.
We're like, no, this can't happen. We don't want anybody being like, oh man, I've got to replay it in order to
get the optimal party, and then that suddenly becomes a point of stress. Like, it's not a point.
Cornelius didn't come. Oh no.
I mean, to be fair though, that it just, I think had that been worked into the game, I probably would have got the average pie, and that would have been back to being like, well, the party's all right, isn't it? I'd be like, oh no, I got the bad ending.
Oh no, personal disaster.
Personal disaster.
Exactly.
I'd have been sat there, I would have looking on the wiki going, what, there was a bouncy castle?
Exactly. And I think that, you know, there's room in the indie game landscape for little linear adventures like ours, as well as all of these cool choice-based games.
Yeah.
But personally, sometimes the choice-based games make me a little bit stressed.
Yeah,
like I don't want to play that all the time. I remember back in the day, I played through Mass Effect and just made the choices that I thought I would make, basically, and they were all like lawful good choices, basically. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try and play this through as a baddie in order to get like the fullest experience. And I couldn't make it through. I got to the point with the Arachni Queen, and I just bawling my eyes out, couldn't play it, you know. But it's like, you don't want to make people feel like they're missing out necessarily, you know. And there is room in the indie landscape for little linear games and big choice-based games, and there are 20 different endings. See if you can collect them all games.
And you know, like particularly when we're working for Nintendo, but also when we've been making our own game, right? Like I don't have an enormous amount of time to play a 200-hour JRPG.
Yeah.
Like I do love that kind of thing, right?
But just too many games, man.
Something that you can cross off your list and then carry it with you afterwards, like in an afternoon or in an evening. It can be a really nice thing to have. And we've really enjoyed loads of games like that. So we wanted to make something like that too.
Yeah, we sort of refer to Shindig as being like evening sized or weekend sized if you want to play it over a couple of sessions, basically. Because while I do love those longer games.
I mean, I feel like I've got a 200-hour JRPG in me.
Oh God, please not yet.
I will definitely be playing that one.
I think there's lots of different types of games in us, though.
Yeah.
But just to be able to make something that, you know, parents can play when their kids gone to bed, or you can play together over an afternoon or a couple of evenings, or however your gaming fits into your life, you can probably find time for like a few hours, basically, for a start to finish story. Because, you know, it's kind of nice to finish things, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean,
sometimes you get like 75 hours in and you're like,
both playing games and developing them, it is nice to finish.
I can only imagine. Yeah, God. I mean, to be fair, like you say though, having having a massively long list of very long games to play is daunting for anyone to be prepared. But actually, it is really nice. And I was going to say actually, because we've talked about the kind of the story, but I was going to ask about the kind of. You've already answered it, to be fair, but I was going to talk about the kind of the importance of the linear narrative in terms of the kind of structure of the game and stuff. But you know, it is very much, from my perspective when I was playing it through, it seemed like it was, as you've just said, a game that you can complete in a few hours. You know, you can sit down on the Sunday afternoon, partners watching the football or watching Strictly Come Dancing, or if you're American, Dancing with the Stars, and you can just sit and play this and just lose yourself in this beautifully crafted world with these adorable characters, and go and explore and find all these little teeny tiny secrets and stuff that are on the island, and get to know and love the characters as well. I mean, you know, that was one of the major things that stood out for
We
me. Is
do.
that the characters are just lovable. Honestly, just
Yeah.
all of them are just, and they're all so different as well.
Yeah.
And when
That was the aim, I think.
I was going to say, was that kind of, so obviously you've got all these different creatures that you kind of use for the kind of base of the characters and stuff, but then every single one of them has their own completely independent personality. It's not like you don't just walk into a shop and you've got an NPC going, "Hi, how are you?" and you walk into the next shop and there's an NPC with a slightly different voice going, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah. I was a hero before I took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, we don't have the Skyrim effect.
No, we don't. We should have put it in. Oh no.
Patch it. It's fine. Patch it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, patch it in.
Good plan.
Yeah, we really wanted to. I mean, so they all have their voices.
Yes.
And kind of part of, like we said earlier, Faye doing most of the voices.
Yeah.
I kind of like that because it's got that sort of audio book feeling of like, it's like having Stephen Fry read it to you, or it's like
story time, basically.
Yeah, some of those old TV shows where all the voices were done by the same person. But we also did try really hard that, if you don't have the voices on, they all speak in a very specific way.
Yeah. Exactly.
We didn't want it to seem as if there is just one voice and it's like Martyn's voice or Faye's voice.
Yeah.
That was
the
really
authorial voice
Yeah.
has the variety to it per character, and their own little foibles and their ways of speaking.
When most of the value of your game is contained within dialogue, then we try to get like some good words used and some funny turns of phrase, and into every balloon if possible.
And the thing is, it's like on top of the kind of the voices of characters and the acting there. We really wanted to put in this the sort of the main character that you play. You can, for the people who haven't played it yet, you can choose a feminine-ish, we've described it as, or a masculine-ish player character voice as well. And the choices that you make when you, because there are dialogue choices, but the choices that you can make are all positively kind of led, basically. The idea being that we wanted to make a game where you couldn't be a douchebag to the nice animals.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, definitely.
Like it just would not fit, basically. But it allows you to sort of have that sort of self-insertion character, basically, of like you make them look a little bit like what you perhaps look like or how you like to present. You make them sound a little bit what you sound like or want to sound like.
But the tone of the game is preserved.
But the tone of the game overall is just this friendly sort of cheerful thing with these funny little characters that each have their own very special needs.
Yeah, you don't get that thing where, like, I don't know, these like open world games where they're trying to be very serious crime dramas, but like in the background there's just like a stack of HGVs just piled up on top of each other with a smouldering helicopter on, and it's like, like in Goodfellas.
But it's all about the kind of choices that you make, and when you make your own game and you're making every single little bit of it, you have to sort of really have quite a, I don't know, like it sounds silly, but a clear vision of like what you're aiming for each part to contribute to the whole, basically. And like you said, we made all of it just the two of us, and it's really easy to go, oh, should we put this in? Oh, should we maybe make it like this? That wasn't the original intent. And we had to try really hard to sort of just go, no, we're not going to work on any other games until we've done Shindig, and we're not going to expand it beyond what we've planned, basically.
And then now Shindig's done, the world is our scope creep oyster.
Don't say
love
that.
It. Absolutely love it. Actually, to be fair, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. To be fair, what does the future hold for Imaginary Friends games?
Well, so
as much as you can tell me, obviously.
No.
Go on.
So we bought, I always say this every time, when we first set up the business, we were like, we're going to be like business people. So we bought this flip chart, this big old kind of thing that you write, like, so that we could brainstorm. And we have this huge sheet on flip chart, just like covered in ideas and scribbles of, what about a game like this? What about a game like this? So we have just so many ideas and absolutely no idea what to pick next, really. So at the minute we have already started working on something completely different to Shindig, but there's small, there's kind of like a little palette cleanser that we can work on in the background whilst, bugs come up and things like that, or people ask for features in Shindig.
And the next
like
big project percolates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have lots of ideas, but I think for now the plan is to do things like get Shindig on, Android if we can, and that kind of thing. If we can do a Linux version, that would be really nice to just bring it to a greater audience. But aside from that, smaller games, lots of smaller games are the plan, because Shindig took us 2 years to make.
We learned a lot, and hopefully we can put some of that into practice quicker.
Exactly. I mean, that was from almost from inception, and learning the kind of skills of that was included learning how to draw, basically, how to do all the music stuff, and you kind of opening Unity for the first time and going, oh no, what's this?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't draw on the regs.
No, I wasn't an artist
before Shindig. But you are now.
Apparently.
There's this whole game.
Cool. So yeah, I think smaller things that are perhaps a lot simpler in form, basically, so that we can build up an idea of the kind of thing we want to do for a bigger project, basically. Because for us, we had to get all the skills for the art and the music and the implementation, and hello cat. But we need to be making things where we can build our skills and also build something that's fun for people to play that isn't. Oh, hello, Cosmos.
I don't know if you can see him. Cosmos is just on my lap. There's the tail.
We can see the tail. We can see the tail
see
of the
it.
cat.
That is Cosmos's tail.
We've got Cosmos. So we've seen Astrid and we've seen Cosmos, people.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Look
Look at the kitties. Oh, that's just made the interview just the interview was amazing. It's just even better now. We've seen two cats.
Please let us present my boy. Hello, mate. Hello.
Yeah. So the sort of very generic answer is shorter things, but also a longer thing in the future. We will revisit.
I'd like
the
to
characters
revisit
of Shindig.
Shindig.
Yeah.
I'd like to do something with
in a while.
Yeah. Like a seasonal Shindig of some kind might be fun to do. I would like that. But realistically, the game kind of needs to sell a little bit more for us to really revisit this property right now.
So Shindig is available on itch and Steam.
I was about to say. Shindig very much is available on Steam, and you should all go and buy it because it is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate you saying that. It's one of the loveliest things about creating something is when people connect with it, and they don't know you. They've just played the thing that you put out into the world, and they probably fall in love with Steve, let's be honest.
Yeah, Steve is a big hit.
Did love Steve, to be fair. But I also loved Quinn and Cosmos and Astrid. I mean, to be fair, I liked Astrid because Astrid was Grumpy Cat. And just in case of, no, this is where I fit. So this is where I stay. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
And she is kind of like that, let's be honest. They very much are like that in real life.
She could move, but she won't try.
She could, but she won't try.
I actually sat there and said to my partner, because I've got a pair of chinchillas. I said to my partner, I was just like, this cat is one of the chinchillas. I was like, it's like Umber in cat form. I have a chinchilla who literally will just find a comfortable spot and just be like, this is where I'm staying.
Yeah.
Bring me my food. Bring me my food. Bring me my water. Bring me my hay, and I'm not moving because I'm comfortable.
That's pretty much Astrid.
Yeah.
She will want to leave a room. She could open the door on her own with her little paws.
Cosmos will, but Astrid won't.
Yeah. Yeah. She could, but she won't try. So true.
Yeah. So yeah, Shindig, it's available on itch. It's available on Steam. If you want to support us, you can get the soundtrack bundle too.
Yeah.
Either way, it's cheap as chips.
We hear that the sounds are quite catchy.
They are.
We like to say it's less than the price of a London pint.
Yeah, exactly.
For our American friends, that's much less than a beer in Disney World.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you want to see more from us, that's the best way to do it.
So we are
we're
slightly distracted by a cat.
I was going to say there's a cat now. It's fine.
We've gone.
This is real. This is good podcast, right? This is great. Great radio.
Trying not to let you.
This is what people will tune in to watch. If we just put the hashtag cat at the end of it, people will be like, "Oh my God!"
Absolutely.
We'll do a highlight reel beforehand, and people will be like, "Oh my God!" There are two cats. Yeah, no, honestly, thank you so much for sitting down with me on this lovely, fine, very grey. I mean, I'm not sure what it's like for you guys, but down where I am,
Oh,
it's
grey.
very grey.
Yeah, it's great.
Very
So
grey.
grey.
Yeah.
Very grey. Tuesday afternoon. It's been lovely to talk. And obviously, like we've been saying, Shindig is available on itch and on Steam. Do go and buy it. Do support these lovely, lovely pair of developers who have come up with a
Thank you.
genuinely beautiful game that is just really, really chilled and really heartwarming, and just I loved it. I'm not gonna lie, I just absolutely loved it.
Oh, thank you so much. You sell it much less awkwardly than I did.
But genuinely, thank you for having us on. It's been a really nice conversation.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And well, I'm just going to move Cosmos away from the microphone now, because that's going to lead to disaster.
I suppose the only other thing, obviously, we can find the game on Steam and on itch, but where can we kind of find more updates about you guys and the kind of projects you've got coming up with Imaginary Friends?
Cool.
We have www.imaginaryfriendsgames.com.
We do.
And we're at GamesFriendo on Twitter.
Yep. And if you really want to follow us on Instagram, that's Imaginary Friends VG, because Imaginary Friends Games is too long. But mostly we are very active on Twitter, so that's where you'll find us. And you can find links
out our other stuff.
Yeah, you can find links to each of us individually from that as well, should you fancy following either of us too.
Fabulous. Well, I know that I, for one, will be after this.
Hey, awesome.
But yeah, no, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone who is watching this wonderful interview with these lovely people about this beautiful game.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.